Is your Bitcoin that is staked or wrapped at risk? The answer is it could be. There's some rumors swirling this week, and I will dive deep into them. Well, I won't dive super deep, but I'll kind of explain the high level stuff. Thanks for joining Bitcoin Season 2. Let's play the intro. Yeah, so this week, some tweets and some rumors and some on-chain sleuths were diving into the world of staked and wrapped Bitcoin and questioning whether certain service providers are basically kind of rehypothecating or reusing some of that stake and inflating TVL. And I will get into that. But before that, let me hit some interesting news that I saw this week, just kind of in the Bitcoin Season 2 ecosystem. I will first kick it off with the AnchorWatch announcement. I have the CEO and founder of AnchorWatch, Rob Hamilton, on Bitcoin Season 2 later this week. So make sure you stay tuned for that episode. I'll be interviewing him on the design of AnchorWatch, and then just in general some thoughts on like Bitcoin development in general. But AnchorWatch is a new custodian. They have designed it pretty interestingly. So it is a fully insured vault by Lloyd's of London. They have what's called a cover holder insurance policy, I guess, and it insures all your Bitcoin. And they have an interesting design using a particular type of script within Bitcoin called mini script, which kind of gives like fallback options and minimizes the amount of signatories you have to trust. And it's a pretty interesting design. So stay tuned. I'll be interviewing Rob next week on that. Otherwise, the other news is everybody has got Pizza Pet fever. If you are listening to this and you're more of a conventional Bitcoin person and you don't know what pizza pets are, then it's basically Tamagotchis, if you remember those things from the early 2000s or 90s. Basically, Tamagotchis are little pets that you have to feed on Bitcoin. You have to take care of them. You got to make sure that they don't die. So you've got to feed these pets and you've got to clean up after them, and you can give them all sorts of drugs and stimulants if you want. But the interesting kind of global mechanic is there's a bunch of these. There's thousands of these. And there's these kind of like global death events where people can trigger what's called pulverizer, which after a certain number of blocks, it explodes and certain pets will die if you haven't protected them. So the Pizza Pets game rolls on. I think if we want to go look at the dashboard, we can see that the majority of the pets are now dead. You can see a survival chart here. There are 17,500 pets alive, 40,000 pets dead. Some pets can become immortal, but that basically means that most pets have evolved into kind of teenagers, if you will. So they're a little bit bigger, and the majority of pets have also died. So interesting to see this. This has been a popular collection from a pricing standpoint. So really fun to do this. I'm playing it, and I wish you all luck, and hope your pets don't get pulverized. Speaking of people who are building stuff in the Pizza Pets auxiliary ecosystem, you also have FIFO here, who this is not a Pizza Pets related announcement, but he and his team, the Wizards of Ord team, put out a new meta protocol. I know before you throw up your hands in exasperation and say, I don't want to hear about another meta protocol. This is actually an interesting one. It's called the assign meta protocol, where basically if you have an inscription in a cold wallet and you want to squirrel it away and you want to not be like using that wallet to sign transactions a lot because you don't want to actually lose that inscription. You want to secure it in a much more reliable way. This is a meta protocol where you can, if you want to like use that cold wallet to, if you want to like use a hot wallet and retain all the benefits of owning your cherished item in the cold wallet, you can from that cold wallet send kind of like a delegate to your hot wallet to say that I own this asset in the cold wallet, and I'm going to basically delegate that by sending an inscription to the hot wallet, you can basically get all the benefits of your cold wallet from the hot wallet. A great example of this is on the Wizards of Ward. The Wizards of Ward. Wizards of Ward, like inscription tooling sites, they give certain benefits to holders of that inscription collection. So if you delegate a certain hot wallet as being like having the assign inscription, you can then enjoy all the benefits of your Wizard of Ward and your cold wallet whenever you use the hot wallet with the delegate assign inscription in it. So, interesting, ingenious idea. It's only being recognized by Life of FIFO and the Wizards of Ward team right now, but I could see this being popular for. I know like the OMB folks, the Ordinal MaxiBiz folks, like to promote taking your OMB and putting it into a cold wallet, never touching it. So I could see this being interesting for the OMB folks to like say, okay, I'm gonna delegate my OMB into this hot wallet so I can like not be so I can enjoy the benefits of like having my hot wallet be counted as an OMB holder without actually risking it and moving that OMB to a wallet where you are signing a lot more transactions. So I think that's pretty interesting. Okay, now we get into the wrapped Bitcoin. The title of this is your staked Bitcoin at risk? And the answer, I'll just give it to you straight, is it could be. This is one of those things where we assume a lot of counterparty trust, and not all counterparties are built the same. And because of that, we have some rumors and FUD swirling around, but sometimes FUD is true. Is there an on-chain FTX brewing? Maybe that might scare you, but we'll see. Let's kick it off with this post from Giannis over at Bitcoin Layers. He's a very good sounding board and to kind of contextualize things. So here's the tweet. It says, all right, who's holding the money? There's a number of custodians securing Bitcoin that backs various pegged assets on other networks, and many derivatives share the same custodians. He gives a bunch of examples. I'll just name a couple. Wrapped Bitcoin is issued by BitGo Global. Used to be HQ'd just in the US, now is HQ'd both in the US, Singapore, and Hong Kong. And they issue the WBTC asset, mainly on Ethereum, but on other blockchains. So they issue WBTC. Binance BTCB, Coinbase CBBTC, and Lombard Finance LBTC. Those are the other like larger like wrapped Bitcoin equivalents. So these are Bitcoin. These are paper Bitcoin, a Bitcoin theoretically Bitcoin pegged asset, which are issued by these various types of custodians. So you deposit your Bitcoin to the custodian. They issue the corresponding asset on another chain, such as Wrapped Bitcoin's WBTC or Coinbase's CBBTC, and you basically trust that that custodian or that counterparty will allow you to redeem your wrapped Bitcoin equivalent back to real Bitcoin. And the reason that this is a product is because that these are products is because you can go and you can take Bitcoin, which is this kind of pristine collateral asset, and go do other things on other chains with it. Maybe you want to mess around and stake your Bitcoin and trade it on, Uniswap. You can do that with like wrapped Bitcoin. So this is a very popular trend, and the amount of wrapped Bitcoin equivalent has only gone up over the past year. And now that now it's becoming even more popular for like large custodians like Coinbase to issue wrapped Bitcoin equivalents like CBBTC. And so there's a bunch of these. There's Stacks, there's Lorenzo Protocol, there's Liquid BTC, Rootstock, Fractal Bitcoin's Bool. It's Kraken is launching one too. Giannis continues in this thread to say, there's a pattern here. In every instance, a specific entity or network acts as the custodian securing BTC backing a respective derivative asset. Custodian equals the party or parties responsible for securing the BTC backing a specific derivative asset. Some custodians are centralized like Coinbase. Others are more distributed like RBTC, which is Rootstock, LBTC, I believe it's Lombard or Liquid, TBBTC, which is Threshold Network. And I also had found Matt Luongo, the founder of that, on this podcast. And he says, with a number of these protocols, the disclosure of the Bitcoin that has been custodied is simply listed in a blog post or their documentation site. Also, reserves most of the time are simply listed Bitcoin addresses on a web page. Here's the thing. He says, we really don't really know for a lot of these if they are in fact an address managed by the relevant custodians. So to clarify, to reiterate, some of these custodians who issue these wrapped Bitcoin assets, many of them even, they post an address and you basically have to see that you see that address and you can verify that there is X amount of Bitcoin in there. But then the question is, does that custodian actually control that address? That is one dimension of the kind of assumptions and trust assumptions that a lot of people are making. And sometimes these custodians can and have proven, yes, we do control these. And we say that there's a multi-sig or multi-part MPC structure to this. And we're demonstrating insofar as we can that we do control this. So Giannis says, for users, there is a few things to think through related to these custodians. One, do you trust the reputation of the participants? This is, as much as you can cryptographically prove things, a lot of this is just reputation and trust. Two, if it's a distributed custodian network, do you trust the consensus mechanism and method for signer selection? That is, some of these have various types of distributed signers. They're all, it's basically multi-sigs on multi-sigs, and the more signatories in the multi-sig, generally, the more distributed it is. And then Giannis says, does the custodian or custodian network provide attestations or clear documentation on things like hardware, process for selecting signers, and also have a clear path towards building a proof of reserves? If you're not familiar with proof of reserves, it's basically saying we can prove that we can sign for and we own X amount of reserves, and it usually corresponds to their publicly stated reserves as well. So, then Giannis says, and while custodians can secure the native BTC without issue, users also have to trust operators of the derivative asset not to issue more derivative tokens than BTC secured by the custodians. That is, if wrapped BTC from BitGo has 1,000 Bitcoin in it, you have to basically trust that BitGo doesn't issue more than 1,000 WBTC. So that's another dimension of trust. So this gets into the staked Bitcoin restaking hypothecation topic, which is, so could TVL numbers be inflated for some projects mentioned? Yes. Could derivatives be unbacked? Yes. Do users trust the reputation of entities involved in integrity of signers in all cases? Arguably, yes, which is Giannis, and I agree with this, saying that you do have to trust the custodians and signers. Then he says, does this make all custodian providers insecure? Of course not. A derivative with a centralized custodian might always stay backed, the Coinbase model. A future trustless bridge implementation could get hacked. But there's a lot of trust put into Bitcoin derivative custodians and providers, even in distributed setups. The derivative asset that you hold is not BTC, it is an IOU that the custodian and the derivative asset operator will give your Bitcoin back if you ask for it. He says that there is a lot of credit to be given for, there are some interesting, robust custody and signing mechanisms that were designed thoughtfully. I have some favorites of mine. And then he also says some caveats, like more signers doesn't always mean better. And he points people to Bitcoin layers. I also point people to Bitcoin layers. They do some great research, and they kind of have here's here's the BTC supply on the layers, and they do trust assumptions and like tracking and Bitcoin locked, and it's a pretty useful site. So that said, that groundwork laid, there is a trend right now to stake Bitcoin, these wrapped Bitcoin assets, on a platform protocol like Babylon. Babylon takes, instead of proof of stake generated assets like Ethereum or Solana, Babylon takes a proof of work generated asset like Bitcoin and uses it to stake for new chains. Now, they're still in the kind of early rollout of this, but they've taken where's the actual, here we go, Babylon staking. They've taken about 56,000 Bitcoin onto the Babylon protocol, which is about $5.59 billion. And they've been kind of accumulating it for the past 4 months or so. And the depositors into this Babylon protocol are kind of the popular names of like Bitcoin staking, such as Lombard Finance, Solve BTC, P Stake, or PBTC. And so the question is, there's this activity going on, and then are these wrapped Bitcoin service providers like Lombard or Solve BTC, is the Bitcoin that the liquid Bitcoin assets they're putting into things like Babylon or staking in other protocols, are those one-to-one backed, or is one of these staking providers issuing, basically, maybe they're not issuing more wrapped Bitcoin equivalent, but maybe are they taking that wrapped Bitcoin and putting it in multiple places at the same time? Well, rumors were swirling this week. Here is a thread that I won't dive too deep into, but it's from user Hans or Trackor. They are the co-founder of newbit.org, and they put kind of they are putting out speculation, which is backed by reasonable thought process, that one provider in particular, Solve BTC, may be cycling some of these wrapped Bitcoin assets they issue. So they may, finger quotes, stake or lock up some of the Bitcoin in multiple staking protocols at the same time, when in fact, if there were true slashing, they'd only be able to do one. So Hans goes through and says, one Bitcoin in Solve might be the same Bitcoin on B squared, might be the same Bitcoin on Merlin or some of these other chains. I forget. Don't quote me on those specifics. And so it's been a back and forth here on this thread, and Hans has kicked a hornet's nest here, and I'd love to have them on, maybe even or maybe an expert to help me kind of wrap my head around this. But there's a lot of speculation and going back and forth, trying to identify where the specific assets are and where the obligations for these staked assets. What are the obligations for these staked assets? So I am not saying that this is happening. I'm just saying that this could be happening, and there's one rumor that is, I feel, currently incomplete and not resolved in this direction. So I see Vallejo Hodl in the chat say, trust no one. And the answer is probably, yeah. I mean, if you want to guarantee that no one can take your Bitcoin from you, you don't want to trust anyone. I think one of the arguments for people even doing this in the first place is, the utility provided or the yield you can get on your Bitcoin warrants certain trust assumptions. And so maybe those trust assumptions are not priced in. I think that's the main takeaway here is a lot of users assume that these things are just kind of cryptographically guaranteed, and in reality, very few of them are. I will shout out Nubit did a thread with showing that Lombard Finance has demonstrated, as insofar as they're cryptographically capable, that they are fully collateralized for all of their staking obligations. So, that's nice. Lombard is I think one of the larger of these wrapped Bitcoin issuers, so that's good to see. But the question is everybody doing this? And if crypto has taught you anything, if the last 5 to 8 years of counterparty trust and FTX type equivalents have taught you anything, there is probably somebody out there doing rehypothecation or does not necessarily have the Bitcoin that they say they have. So this is one of those things where I don't want to spread specific fear or FUD, but I want to just talk about the trust assumptions that a lot of the ecosystem is making and some of the concerns which have been raised. This is a story which could develop, not at all in the next week or a ton in the next week. So, you heard it here first on Bitcoin Season 2. If you want, I will probably be writing a newsletter about this in the Bitcoin in the Blockspace newsletter tomorrow morning. That is Tuesday. So make sure you like and subscribe to that so you can get that, maybe a more, if you prefer written content, or maybe a little bit more specific deep dive into it. That would be great. I see Chris says, love this channel. Thank you, Chris. Thanks for watching. Everyone, thank you so much for listening to Bitcoin Season 2. I'm Charlie Spears, Blockspace Media. Like and subscribe. Give us a review, hopefully 5 stars out of 5, but be honest. Otherwise, make sure to follow the Twitter at BTCSZN2. And I will see you all next week.